Hey friends, it's Melvin. Thanks for tuning into this episode. Here's just a few quick things I wanted to notify you guys about before we get started. First up, very soon, new episodes will be releasing Wednesday mornings rather than Tuesday. So don't panic if you don't see a new episode on Tuesday. Just wait a little longer and you'll see it in your feed. Second, we've introduced a mailbag. Check those show notes and toward the bottom you'll see a mailbag link. You'll then be able to text us any questions you might have about movies, the movie industry, or any movie/Christian related questions you might have. Then we'll respond in a future episode, so send us your questions now. Up next, Patreon polls, which are available to Patreon supporters at the $3 tier or higher, have been updated. Supporters can now suggest films or shows to be reviewed at the end of each month. The two most liked submissions will become the options for the Patreon poll, so if you want to hear us talk about your favorite movie or show, join our Patreon and start campaigning. And lastly, whether you're a new or longtime listener, please consider writing a review or rating the Cinematic Doctrine podcast on iTunes and Spotify. Apart from financially supporting on Patreon, these are the two most helpful ways to support the show. And that's it. Enjoy the episode. You're listening to Cinematic Doctrine.
If you just press play, you are missing out on 35 minutes of talking about kind of a myriad of things, but mostly DC as a...
Under new management.
Under new management, consistent, not... I think it's not irrational to say a consistent failure in terms of not reaching the standard that DC clearly wants to be at in terms of compared to Marvel, compared to being successful. And so we kind of talk about that. Yeah, we talk about the Hamada stepping down, which is pretty normal considering what's been going on. Not in terms of quality, but in terms of like, it's just business. He's moving on. And then James Gunn stepping in. We talk about that. Kind of some expectations. Dan talks more about like James Gunn and probably what that'll entail. I think I talk more about like the company being profitable and like how like it's sort of weird, but DC just doesn't seem to be as much of a like cultural geek touch point as Marvel, and like that's clearly what they want to be. And then we kind of finalize with just how absurd it is that characters like Superman and Batman, I mean, it's Batman's still killing it, but like Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, Flash, all have like, at Aquaman even, it's taken forever for them to finally get movies that matter. And even then, like, they're still pale in comparison to like Ant-Man and like other characters in the Marvel universe that are just essentially we're D-listers now, A-listers. And so, yeah, you get to tune into that for $3 a month if you support on Patreon. And you get some other cool stuff too with Patreon exclusive content that's always at the beginning of an episode. And so you can just press play and kind of move on, live your life. Yeah, you'll hear about some other perks as you keep listening to the episode. I kind of intersperse them every couple minutes, so you'll hear them every 10 or so minutes. Yeah, it's cool. You help us reach some goals, extra content, all that jazz. But we are here, as you press play and heard a little bit, to talk about Black Adam. Dan, do you want to just kind of explain Black Adam briefly, and then we'll just get into it?
Sure. Back in 2007, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, this is during his early period when he was trying to cross over into becoming an action star, doing a lot of Disney family films, was cast as the character Black Adam. And the project gestated in production for many, many years, with the real shift being, of course, the start of the DC universe, where they were trying to create like a shared continuity and universe of characters all inhabiting the same world, so to speak. And so initially Black Adam was slated to the details are a little sketchy. I'm not sure if he's supposed to be a villain or just appear in the first Shazam film. However, The Rock petitioned for the character to get his own solo film first, as The Rock is, if anything, he's a very savvy businessman. Like, he's with the priority number one is being sure that he himself becomes a big star. I'm not saying there's a negative thing. That's just kind of how he looks at things. And so I think he saw the potential of turning Black Adam into kind of his own franchise player. So his likeness was utilized briefly in Shazam. And so he instead was given his own solo film. And so finally, after many, many delays, stops and starts, 15 years after being cast as the character, we now have our live action Black Adam movie. The film was directed by Jean Coles Serra, who you may know as the director of several Liam Neeson action movies. He also directed The Shallows, which I enjoyed. And most importantly, he directed Jungle Cruise, starring The Rock. The film is produced by The Rock and his ex-wife as part of Seven Bucks Productions, as well as, of course, DC. It has a lot of credited writers and people at the helm, but don't get twisted. This is definitely a Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson show. This is The Rock's movie. The Rock plays his self-insert OC character, Black Adam, who's just the coolest guy in the world. He is an unstoppable killing machine, but he's also got deep down a good heart. Our premise is that way back in the vague ancient past, sort of, there is an evil king who's creating a crown made out of what is the stuff called?
Unobtainium.
Yes, my friend made the same joke in the theater. He forgot the name of it. He was like, unobtainium.
In Scooby-Doo 2, I didn't realize this, but it's just called randomonium. There's, and I was like, the second I read that, I laughed because it's like, it doesn't matter. It can be random.
It's a super important material, and there's making a crown for an evil king. However, a young child rises up against the tyranny of the king, and he's given the powers of Shazam, much like you may saw in the previous film Shazam, and so he becomes the protector and champion of Kahndaq, and he fights the evil king. Fast forward to present day DC universe, and Intergang, which is a nice detail, has taken over Kahndaq. However, a group of people, freedom fighters, are they archaeologists? I don't know. They know where the crown is.
Yeah.
So
I think it was that there are people who
believe in the legend of the champion.
And the invaders on the land, the people you just named, I don't remember their name.
Intergang.
Intergang is there searching for this thing. And our human heroes are pretty sure they know where it is, so they want to get to it first. That's kind of the setup.
Yeah,
there.
So basic setup, and in the process, they release Black Adam to the world, and he just instantly kills all of the Intergang people there. In what is admittedly a cool scene.
Yes.
However, this disrupts the status quo. So Amanda Waller, who is really making a lot of money, Viola Davis has got a great career just doing Zoom calls into other projects now. Had a similar cameo in the Peacemaker show.
And I just want to say is the exact same scene as the first Suicide Squad movie. I literally leaned into Kat and was like, it's the same thing. She's doing the same thing where they're just like, how about this character? Yes, this is what they do. How about that character? Yes, that is also what they do.
Well, what's interesting is that, and as opposed to disposing the Suicide Squad to stop Black Adam, she just sends out the JSA, the Justice Society. I actually don't think they call them the JSA. I think they're just called the Justice Society here. Which is interesting. It's an interesting twist on it where they're like a state government approved version of the Justice League, kind of.
Yeah.
Where they have Hawkman, Dr. Fate, Cyclone, and Atom Smasher, whose dad is Henry Winkler for some reason.
Yeah.
They're just sent out to stop Black Adam because he's causing a ruckus. And however, the people of Kahndaq love Black Adam. And then they fight, and then it turns out they need to team up to stop a greater evil. You know how this goes. From here, the formula kind of takes over. The plot is kind of secondary to just seeing cool characters do cool stuff. Clear fan favorite. And the character I was most looking forward to is Pierce Brosnan's portrayal of Dr. Fate. He is a Kent Nelson. He's a great character. Dr. Fate's really cool. And so I think he does the character justice. Brosnan, if he is not playing this character like with a wink and a nudge, he's just doing a great Dr. Fate. Hawkman is really cool in this, and Cyclone and Atom Smasher are also there. There is some interesting stuff with they get into some mild geopolitical stuff, and then they immediately drop it. Intergang is there, and then they're gone. None of that's important because you get to see Black Adam, who's just with no remorse, just murders people constantly. And it sounds simple and silly, but it's oddly engaging just watching this guy who does not care about superhero rules at all. He butts heads, he fights with Hawkman, then they fight, as is standard for these types of movies, a very underwhelming, uninteresting villain. There's some cool stuff that happens for like 5 seconds and it's forgotten about. Your enjoyment of this film will be directly proportional to how much you just enjoy watching pretty well done action sequences, and they are violent and they are visceral.
Yes.
The original cut of the movie was rated R, and they just had to edit it down multiple times to get to the PG-13 rating.
Wow, that's interesting. I wonder, because
I think it was the kills. I think it's the types of kills, like the end kill of this movie. Spoilers: he rips a guy in half, basically.
Oh yeah, but it was like lava, so it's like
they must have had blood or guts or something, or there's just scenes that were just cut entirely. Who knows? And that stuff is cool. They do. I will say one thing that the DC universe does really well compared to Marvel is I think they do a decent job of really establishing how different people's superpowers are better or worse than other people's powers. And so Black Adam's power set is he just has Superman's powers, plus he shoots lightning. I thought the first half is actually pretty engaging, and then it just sort of settles into just being a pretty standard superhero action movie. This is the first superhero movie I've seen that made me feel like I was watching like an 80s action film, in kind of the good and bad sense of that, where you're just here to watch your particular action star dispose of a bunch of faceless villains, and you just skip through the talking scenes to get to the action scenes. Black Adam lands right in the dead center of the DC universe for me in terms of quality. It's not as good as the good movies, but it's far better than the bad ones. You know, I like The Rock, and I'm looking forward to what comes next. I actually do want to see more of this character, and I really like the Justice Society here, and it does set up some interesting stuff for the future. However, that doesn't make the actual act of watching the movie any better for me. This is a solid C for me, right dead center. It's okay. On the one hand, I do think it's worth seeing in theaters just because the action on the big screen is so enjoyable. On the other hand, I don't know if I'd want to pay $15 to see it again, but it also won't be as good at home because it is a big spectacle movie. So yeah, it's all right in the dead center for me here.
Hey there, it's your friendly neighborhood call to action. Just checking in on you. Hope you're doing all right. I'm just stopping by to say, if you enjoy the show, you can always subscribe and write a review for Cinematic Doctrine. There's iTunes, Podchaser, basically anywhere you listen. You can give us a shout out with a thumbs up, 5 stars, gripping positivity. Or if you hate the show, you can say that too.
Wait, what? What are you saying? Why are you saying
Well, I'm not
that?
going to tell them what to do, Ted. They're free to do what they want. Our analytics say we got a lot of listeners in the US, and they love their freedoms. And you're also free to check out our Twitter. Very active there. We host polls, memes. There's also the Cinematic Doctrine Facebook group called Cinematic Doctrine Facebook Group. If you want to join, just answer the questions, read the rules, and tell them the podcast sent you. Also, you should check out our website. Some really cool stuff there. Editorials, written reviews for movies we haven't had time to cover. Always check out cinematicdoctrine.com when you get the chance. Oh, Ted also told me I shouldn't forget to mention the Patreon. Something about you can support us or something? Wait, Ted, I thought this was like a hobby thing. You want me to
expand Cinematic Doctrine? You know this already.
Right. Yeah, I forgot. I'm the one who put all this together. Yeah, Cinematic Doctrine has a Patreon. For as little as $3 a month, you can gain access to early uncut episodes of the podcast. Oh, and did I mention, you get to tell us what to do. That's right, each month you get to vote on a movie we discuss on the show. Anyways, I gotta run, so I'll see you guys later.
Melvin, what did you think of Black Adam?
Like you, I also thought the first half was fun and engaging. I liked that the trailer kind of made it seem like the big fight with the Justice Society was at the end, just because most trailers do that. If it's big spectacle stuff, that's usually the ending. But no, that was like just the first act. And I read some interviews with Dwayne, Mr. Rock Johnson. And he specifically said, like, it's cute because he definitely likes the character, but he really was interested to hear how people reacted to the idea that he's like a quote unquote super villain, but he's not, because he's actually just the hero of a particular place that has more or less been abandoned by like NATO and like superheroes, stuff like that. That's all interesting and cool. And I enjoyed all that. It's very heavy handed, but it's like still enjoyable. And I actually thought a lot of stuff like that was pretty good, as the Justice Society is trying to stop him and kind of causing a decent amount of collateral damage. In fact, I wonder if a rated R cut was like collateral violence. Like that would have been kind of interesting.
Yeah, there's a lot of subtle things that if they kept pursuing them would have really elevated the movie.
In addition to the fact that then later on it kind of just mentions and makes a joke about the collateral damage, which I didn't need.
Yeah.
But like, I get it. Like I made a joke in the last episode, the Halloween one, that like I went to the bank and a person asked, "Oh, in the new Halloween, does he kill his brother?" So like, look, people are not keeping up with trailers, let alone movies. Sometimes they need the movie to really spell it out to them that collateral damage is a thing in drone strikes. Sometimes they don't hit their targets. And so I get it. But when you're making a big budget flick like this, you're trying to hit the lowest common denominator to get the highest budget denominator. I don't know. All that to say is that I understand, but I like that first half stuff. I liked when the Rock. It's just the Rock. I liked when Black Adam comes out of his like stasis prison thing, and I actually liked how the Rock interpreted being like confused and seeing a new world.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed all that. I like the there have been criticisms about the slow motion throughout the movie. I liked it. I think slow motion inherently is kind of cool because it doesn't exist in reality. And so it's already a benefit. It's like if you want to make your movie look more like a movie, slow motion helps that. And it wasn't just slow motion for slow motion's sake. Like for the most part, they used it in ways that were pretty neat. Explosions, clever power jokes about him, like someone throws a grenade and he can like take it, like put it in a guy's mouth, like silly stuff like that. And later on, like he has a fight and like first it's like not rain, but like he's in like an underwater prison cell that has water everywhere. I don't know why, it just looks cool. So it looks neat when it's in slow motion, and like all that stuff is cool. So to me, that benefited the film. I actually quite liked all that. And so there's some style, there's some character stuff that's pretty good. I don't like fish out of water stories. I like when they're serious. So like the first time watching Stranger Things, I wasn't into the 11 character, but now I actually really like the 11 character because I've come to like fish out of water when it's serious. And so that's why I like when Black Adam comes out and he's being kind of like fish out of water, but I gotta fight. And so
it's
like
just walking through walls, doesn't know what doors are.
But that's like kind of silly to me, especially when it's like, of course we have doors. They're like, I don't know. It's just like, that's like dumb humor. And that was pretty bad. Yeah, but it is something where like, because the violence is so fun and his power level is so high that like, I was just eager to see the fights. And I kind of thought like, since like the WWE is so freaking confusing to figure out how to watch it on Peacock, I was like, well, at least I get to watch The Rock fight people in this movie. So like, there's like a scene where like a kid's running away from some bad guys in like in an apartment, and I was just excited.
And that kid makes the stupidest decisions twice.
And I saw one of the criticisms online was that the kid is like the most, I don't know, algorithmically decided what is cool kind of character. I got a lot of like Amazing Spider-Man 1 vibes with his character being like, what if Peter Parker was cool and skateboarded and did art? And it's like, no, he's supposed to be a geek. Like
yeah. Well, this kid, like on the one hand, he's borderline like a freedom fighter at one scene. And the next scene, he's like gets caught in a building twice. Yeah. It's very like he very much is a character that exists to push the plot forward. You know?
Yeah, he's very lame.
Yeah.
And and that freedom fight subplot was pretty bad, but it like I got it with the aesthetic, but we didn't need it at all.
We'll talk about it when we get to it, but the whole end of this movie is such a like massive letdown in so many ways.
It's crazy. The ending is insane. I got some good laughs out of it because I was laughing at the movie. Although one of the jokes in the ending was funny. There's a character who Dr. Fate tells him like how he'll die.
Yeah.
And it's like, you'll die by electricity. And he's like, but I work with electricity. But then he interprets that as, it's okay, I can do whatever I want because I die by electricity. So I thought that was pretty funny.
In a darker edit of the movie, the end of the movie would be Black Adam accidentally shooting him.
Yeah, I was just, in my brain, I was just thinking about that. And maybe in the future, that's what it'll be. Like he turns out to be a bad guy, which would be kind of weird. But, or Black Adam goes evil, like actually evil or regrettably bad. But
they keep saying that they're leading up to a movie where he fights Superman. So
And why not? Like, he's got to do something. But yeah, I'm not. They kind of set it up that like it could be because Black Adam leaves his territory, which I don't think is like fair. Like, I don't like if Black Adam becomes who we stand, then I'm fine with that. Especially with Henry Cavill's not the scripts that interpret
spoilers. Mid credit scene, Henry Cavill Superman comes back. Don't worry, we'll talk about
which, it. Which to me, I do not care about. Like, it's just so lame. People clapping, get out of here. You just put your action figures away. Just get out of here. This is so lame. But yeah, as you can hear in my response, like, there's stuff I like about the movie, and it was pretty fun. But even as I was leaving, like, I just became sour about the film because it feels like a movie that I'm already tired of seeing. Like, Phase 4 Marvel has been interesting because it's been so bizarre and strange at times, except for like bad endings. But like, we had a horror movie that was kind of fun, and we had like Moon Knight, which was kind of trippy, not trippy enough, but trippy and kind of just weird. Miss Marvel was just basically like a fun teen show with some hero stuff, and then gets a little serious. So it's a cool coming of age kind of narrative, and then also just one episode that's just like a Bollywood romance, which I thought was great. She-Hulk was really fun because it's just a serial until the ending, and it just kind of gets weird. You'll probably hear about our thoughts on that later this month. And yeah, it's just to kind of watch Black Adam and be like, they did it. They made a Marvel movie. Like, it feels like a Marvel movie, almost through and through, where it has a bit of a serious slant while also having fun fights, and then a disappointing ending. I don't know. Like, it is what it is.
You may not know this, but the easiest way you can show your support for Cinematic Doctrine is to rate and review the podcast on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you listen. So press pause and share your thoughts. We'd love to hear what you have to say. And then press play again so you can hear the rest of the show.
Even down to like, I said in our Patreon thing that like one of the benefits that I learned from a YouTube video, from a video essay, we just cross my heart and kind of like do a Hail Mary to forgive my sin of talking about video essays. But like the fact that it's like at least the earlier movies had the Infinity Stones to like give you a through line and see how they affected people. Like, I like that at least in this movie, the through line was like, well, how did the magicians who gave Shazam his powers just kind of affect a different time period? That was cool. And that's like kind of all I need to connect these worlds. And I didn't need much more. It's like I'm pretty middling about this movie, but I didn't not like it. I really enjoyed watching it in theaters. The violence is cheerworthy. There's like a really cool kill where like basically there's like bikes that blink and they fly and like blink. So it's a video game term. You press a button and your character kind of teleports, but only a short distance. And these bikes are used to escape Black Adam, stuff like that, jump through buildings, pretty cool. And like Black Adam specifically, after learning how the blink works, takes a guy and throws him off the bike, but then has the bike blink into where the guy goes, which got some great cheers out of me. And so like,
that was cool. Cool.
There's just like fun, silly, the stuff you've come to enjoy about like Michael Myers or Friday the 13th, or especially with Freddy Krueger, where they're like kind of creative, fun ways of like beating your enemy. So it's a middling film for me, but it's not bad. And I don't think it's like, I don't know, like I would be fine if DC did more stuff like this, where at least there's more connective tissue. And like I said before, I think Shazam is probably the strongest one and could have been their first movie. Shazam could have been their equivalent of Iron Man. But at this point, Shazam 2 is coming out like 6 years later, and everyone looks old and just crusty.
Man, and not just the kids. Like, I was shocked.
I know. Zachary Levi, I hope he's okay. Like, I don't know if he's just older or something, but like, yeah, it's weird. I'm not sure what's going on, but who knows? But also, what's the point of even caring about where these are going? Everything's changing like every 2 years. It doesn't matter. It's just like, so in that respect, it kind of sours it even more. Like, what am I supposed to be excited for? Why are you, it's like Hannibal Buress. Why are you booing me? I'm right. Like, stop clapping. Like, who cares if Superman showed up? Henry Cavill might not be here. He might go to jail. Like, maybe he's going to commit crimes. I don't know. What's the point?
Say that. So part of why there's a particular strong subset of fans who are excited that Henry Cavill's back is they were expressly told he wasn't coming back, partially because the previous people in charge of the DC universe wanted to move away from the Snyder films as much as possible, and so that included trying to like disassociate from particular characters he was associated with. And this includes Henry Cavill's version of Superman.
Do you think that's why they made his hair so swoopy in this? Like, just to be like, he's a nice Superman because he puts hair gel in.
I don't know. Well, so part of it is that The Rock...
He does look good.
I don't know how much of this The Rock can take credit for. It might just be him trying to take credit for it. But according to him, for the record, they have the same agent, Henry Cavill and The Rock. So they are friendly.
Yeah.
And so he specifically wanted Henry Cavill to come back Superman. According to him, he was told he could not come back. But then when Zaslav came in, they were given the okay because, they just want a Superman in theaters, and they're fast tracking the production of a new Superman film with Henry Cavill. And say what you will about the previous Superman films, I think this is the smarter call.
Yes, I do agree on that too.
Yeah, I mean, he's the guy that, like, for now we're coming up on 10 years. He has been the theatrical Superman. Love him or hate him, however you feel about whichever movies he's in, this is the guy that when people say Superman, he's what comes to mind for most people. And I agree. Like, I've seen Superman and Lois, the show. It's very charming and cool. I like Brandon Routh and the fact he's been able to come back as a character various times because of, Crisis on Earth, etc.
Bring back Dean Cain.
I
cool.
would not mind like a weird like Reign of Superman type story or something. But
if they continued the Snyder thing up to Final Crisis, they technically could do that. Since like I think Darkseid like takes every Superman, including the Shazams, and puts them like in a alternate world. I can't remember the plot.
Is it
of that.
Battle Worlds? What is it called?
I don't remember. But Final Crisis is ridiculous. It sucks.
But so yeah, there are a couple things in this movie that I think are not just good, they're actually interesting. And so like the whole thing where when the Justice Society shows up, people are like, where have you guys been for the past like 30 years?
Yes,
Intergang has been running this country. And like, so now you want to come when we have a hero who will liberate us. That's when you want to come in here and start punching things up.
It's very much weapons of mass destruction. They've got weapons of mass destruction over there. We've got to invade or something like that.
And I don't know if they back down because they realized they were getting into some actual like political topics that maybe they weren't ready to make a movie about. But it's genuinely interesting. And they portray the Justice Society as well-meaning, but kind of buffoons, atom smashers, just breaking buildings.
Yeah.
And like they take the time to show people screaming and running away from the so-called superheroes. Hey, there's something going on here. There's a good point. And I like the premise of they've unearthed who they think is their savior, but he does not know. Like he actually isn't Superman. He's just a guy who has these powers, and they actually do kind of have a plot twist-ish sort of near the end.
Yeah, I thought it was good. I liked it. I just think it takes a little long to get there.
It does take a while to get there. And then it doesn't have that much of a bearing on the story in the end, but it's still an interesting wrinkle in the story. And then, so that's kind of interesting.
It's an interesting wrinkle on the concept of mythology and the like mythologizing of like history. Which I enjoy because like I don't even know what I had for dinner last night. What did I have? So how do I know, like, how can we be really, really confident about like history and historical records sometimes? Like it's hard to keep up with this stuff, let alone what's happened last week or the week before. So like the concept of a hero who may not have actually been accurate is like, that's cool. I like that. I think that's a fun idea.
Some of this stuff is like, there's a particular thing as we get close to the end that they just kind of sweep under the rug. But that's interesting. So you have a couple interesting elements here. And then for those who are not aware, Intergang in the comics, they're led by Malcolm Mannheim. And what's interesting about them is if you noticed, if you ask yourself, hey, why do they have like future space tech randomly? It's because in the comics, they're secretly working with Darkseid. He is supplying them with materials from his planet because he plans on using them as an entrance into Earth to conquer Earth. And he double crosses Intergang in the end. So that's like a neat little detail. Like I like that. Like we just need a bad guy corporation that nerds can point to continuity stuff when they're Intergang, because it doesn't really matter in the story who the bad guys are because they just need people for The Rock to punch up.
My brain just interpreted it as like how the Godzilla Monsterverse movies have developed, where like the first one's pretty grounded. Kong Skull Island's kind of pulpy but still grounded.
And then by the end, you're like a future society, they're fighting robots,
and they're like going like into the earth, that kind of thing.
Yeah, there's
so
like
my
a hollow
brain was
earth.
just like, whatever.
There's a magic spear or something that King Kong needs. Yeah.
What a good movie. That's so good.
What a good movie. Yeah, that movie was a lot of fun.
That was a blast at theaters. I can't wait for the next one. Whenever is there going to be a next one? I don't know, but it's got to be more.
Little did you know, Melvin, there actually is an in-universe explanation for why they have these things. And then as the movie goes on, they become friends with the Just Society. Intergang just kind of leaves the movie at a certain point.
They get obliterated. It's great. It's good stuff.
It's like I get that we're supposed to be like, I guess in that one explosion they'll die, but like all of them, what happened to everyone? Like, but anyway, and then like all the political stuff just gets dropped at a certain point. They just, after like that scene, they just stop talking about it. And so that is kind of a bummer.
It's because it's a very, I don't know if you knew this, Daniel, but this is a very religious movie, because when you get past the politics, what you see is that humanity is sinful and the real enemy is sin and Satan. That's why we have to end the movie with a fight.
That's why we basically have Satan. So yeah,
it's so funny, man.
So the main bad guy is great. A guy who comes from the lineage of the king that in the legend The Rock kills.
That was also something I liked. Is there's a lot of characters. Part of their motivation has to do with lineage and heritage, and it was both cultural and family wise. And I did like that a lot of characters, that was like a big thing for them. Like even one of the heroes, it was stuff that the growing one, Noah Centineo, which, man, I wish he had more in this, because you can see him just doing well, just chewing up scenery. Like he is a very active performer, and yet like all he gets is like 4 scenes in this movie and then a CG performance. But I digress. Like
for those who don't remember, he's one of the boys that the girl loved before.
Yeah, that's the description that we all know him for. He's a good teen rom-coms, and he's consistently the best performer in most of those. Although Lena Condor is really good against him and To All the Boys. But yes, I like that a lot of characters and themes and the development of all of it was lineage and heritage and family in a way that's not like Vin Diesel. So maybe, The Rock was actually kind of getting at Vin Diesel with that. But it's all about family. I like that. I forgot to mention it, but.
Enjoying this episode? Grab that share link and tell your friends. Word of mouth is the most effective way for a podcast to reach new listeners, so don't be shy. Share the episode wherever you can.
There's nice details here, but they don't. I just feel like a lot of them never pay off in any way. So it's also revealed that The Rock, his son, was the actual person who started the rebellion, and then so like at the beginning of the movie, we're shown a flashback, and then we revealed that the flashback is wrong, which kind of goes into what we're talking about.
Well, what's confusing is the trailers advertise separate something else. Then the flashback in the beginning is different from what we're told in the trailer. So if you listen to the episode, we talked about spoilers. The trailer is like, I was a slave before I died, and then my son. Which I don't remember that line being even in the movie.
Oh, I really didn't watch any trailers for the movie, so
it was just playing at every movie I went to see, like in theaters, pretty much. But like, it was like, I was a slave before I died. I was getting revenge for my son who they killed, and then like the opening of the movie is like, my son was saved by. No, it was like there was a kid who became a hero. Before he got killed, he became he was taken by the magicians to become Shazam. So then you're like, oh, okay, so the kid's him. But even though in the movie, in the beginning, it's clear like Dwayne's the dad, and like you remember the trailer, so you're like, I'm not sure how is this going to pay off. And then then it changes. It was really confusing. You want to talk about Halloween Ends being disappointing because of the trailer? Like this was really confusing to me. So I had to really stop remembering the trailer while watching the film because I kept thinking about it. But what the movie does, if you haven't seen the trailer, I think is good. I'm sorry. You were explaining the how it happens.
So
though.
He gives himself up. He gets taken to the Suicide Squad base where Jennifer, I think her name's Holland. She's now, congratulations to her. She and James Gunn got married recently. She's in Suicide Squad, and Peacemaker, she's there, and they put him in like a cryostasis thing, like in Dragon Ball. And but then so like the JSA has to still stop the main bad guy because in a sequence that's very brief, and I wish more of the movie had stuff like this in it. The villain puts
the hell.
the villain gets the crown. He gets blown up with it, goes to hell. 7 demons give him their powers to turn him into the devil, basically.
I was curious if that was part of. So you mentioning the history of this R-rated movie becoming PG-13. It's very Stay Alive if you think about it.
Yeah, or Event Horizon.
No movie has the history of Stay Alive.
Yeah, that cinematic hallmark, Stay Alive.
Well, just the amount of changes on Stay Alive, it's crazy.
Yeah. Apparently it's lost. All of it's lost.
Yeah, like what's up with that? I can't wait for that to be found somehow. It's gotta be found. But yeah, that scene is so dark visually, not aesthetically, just dark. Like you can barely see the hell world and separate the demons from the rest of it. That I was wondering, because I know the MPAA before has hated demons to the point where like Constantine gets rated R, even though it's a PG-13 movie, just because it depicts hell.
Yeah, and it's also an international thing, because different countries are more sensitive about demons and the devil and stuff too.
Yeah, and so like I was curious why it was so dark, because those visuals look pretty neat. And like, I don't know, you could make it look like Doom, the new games, where it's just like kind of orangey, deserty. Like, I don't know, but I digress. Like, yeah, that scene was pretty cool. It's there for like 2 seconds. The confusing part is it's super dark, and also it's upside down. So you try and have your brain process
the opposite
that.
of what happened to Shazam.
So, okay.
Yeah, and so like he becomes like a devil creature with a pentagram like carved into his chest,
Which is cool.
It's cool. I can see why he's not in any of the marketing for the movie.
He is shown in the trailer coming out of the water, but it's from behind, and so as an audience for the trailer, you're like, "Oh, okay, big bad guy." Cool. So watching the movie, you're like, when does he show up? But
yeah, and the Just Study goes Dr. Fate, because he sees the future, he knows people's fate, he sees that there's only one way that they're going to win, so he decides to take him on his own. And they show some cool Dr. Fate powers while he simultaneously astral projects and gives a pep talk to the Rock. And I actually like this sequence where he convinces him to come out of his sleep and he breaks out. It's like, I think it's the better of the slow-mo sequences. Cool. And Dr. Fate gives his life, which bothered my friend with the movie because he's like, there's like 100 things you get done where he didn't have to die.
Absolutely. Yes.
Which, he dies because this is the point in the movie where someone needs to heroically sacrifice himself.
And Pierce Brosnan doesn't want to stick around in the DC universe much longer, so I don't blame
Kent, him. There's ways you can bring him back. The Helmet of Fate and Naboo, in the comics, multiple people have the Helmet of Fate, so they can still keep the Dr. Fate character around, just with a different person wearing the helmet.
Do you think if the movie was rated R before, that he smoked a cigarette or cigar when so Black Adam tries to kill some people and Hawkman gets mad, so they fight in an apartment?
And what is a fun action sequence?
Yeah, and then Dr. Fate sits down and then it pops a mint in his mouth. And I was like, man, this is like the 4th movie where I've seen like a scene like this where a character sits down and puts a mint in their mouth or something. And I was like, I think that's like the replacement of like, all right, well, I'm going to be here for a bit. Guess I'll light a cigarette or a cigar.
Yeah. Or a nice pipe.
I see music videos that like have from like musicians that are clearly for have young demographics, and they have like drinking and alcohol and cigars and cigarettes in them. So I don't know why are movies still behind on this? Like, I'm not going to say smoking's cool.
It's so cinematic, though.
So smoking is cool in movies.
Yeah.
It's only cool in movies. And I have experience. You want to know why? Because for some reason, somebody lit a cigarette in our theater while we watched Black Adam. And like, you could just smell it. And it was just vile. It burned my nose.
I would have complained about that.
I was like, I've been very upset with my last few screens I've been to. And part of why I see Dolby is because the price tag omits like bad screens, because no one's going to spend $26 to talk over each other, talk over the movie. You've spent $26 to go see that movie because you're going to watch the movie. So I don't know what this guy was thinking, but all that to say is like, it seemed like just lame. I don't know. I think smoking is super cool in movies, not in real life. I think it's a little expensive. I like a hookah pipe every now and then. I haven't done it for like a couple of years because of COVID, but all that. Yeah. Now that every time we're talking about scenes now, I'm thinking like, what's the R equivalent at this point? Like, Like he rips the guy's arm off. What is there, like bones or something? Like he threw that one guy into the
5
ground.
minutes of the guy just screaming on the ground. Crying.
Yeah, like I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, but I digress. You were kind of explaining though that the twist though, where like the kid gave his powers to Black Adam.
So the kid, turns out the kid is the one who initially got the powers, and the Rock was his dad. But his dad is dying, so the kid gives him his powers to save him. But right when it happens, he gets struck by an arrow, and a kid dies on screen.
Yeah,
and it's intense. And the Rock, in a rage, goes and he destroys the king, and lots of innocent people die because his anger grew so great that it caused a giant explosion.
Which there's a line later where someone talks about the king dying, and he says like he said some kind of line that implied that the king died in a very painful manner, or that his neck snapped really easy or something.
Yeah.
But in the scene, the flashback, he just kind of gets so mad he explodes and people like die. So now that you said the R-rated thing, I'm like, did we get like a gruesome scene where he like just like rip this guy's head off or something? Yeah. That would have been awesome.
And so it's like, you were not held there by when we found you, that was your prison. Those kinds of lines are said. But so he decides to be a hero. So he goes to fight the devil basically, and teams up with Hawkman and Cyclone and Atom Smasher. And while this is happening, the devil raises the armies of hell to fight the land, but the little skateboard cool kid throws up the Jay-Z sign and gets everyone to cause a rebellion.
What's the attack in Dragon Ball that Trunks does? That's what the symbol was. I forget what it's called.
For my wrestling fans, this is the DDP thing. Diamond cutter sign.
Yeah. And what other things does it represent?
303.
Panos Cosmato's favorite shape.
Yeah. It's the triangle shape, for those if you haven't picked up yet.
Yes.
But so the people decide to fight the armies of hell, and the armies of hell are just a bunch of skeleton dudes, like Jason the Argonauts. Zombies, very disappointing. You're expecting like dragons and like hell beasts and different types of demons, and maybe some like all-star team of like, you could get some DC like demon characters in there. Etrigan the demon shows up, Lucifer Morningstar, who knows who could show up. It's just skeletons.
And it's just there for no reason, and it pads out the ending for like 10 minutes. Like when you see all the scenes together, it's probably 8 to 10 minutes, but also there's very little interaction between the people.
There's still overlap between this and the story. Like you can cut this whole thing. It doesn't matter. It just gives the character something to do. So Atom Smasher and Cyclone are helping the people fight the skeleton dudes. And the Rock rips the dude in half, like down the middle,
which is cool.
Which is a neat visual.
I've seen a lot of that in PG-13 movies, by the way. I'm trying to remember the other one, and then there was that one movie I recommended like last year as a horror movie. Oh man, Polaroid. There's like a kill in Polaroid where like the monster shows up and like rips a person in half, but it's close enough that it's out of focus, so you don't see any like guts or innards. But it's like, hey, that was great. Like I wasn't expecting that at all. But I guess like if you do it with some flair and no blood, like people are chill about it. I don't know. I pop for that anyway, so it doesn't matter. But yeah, I don't know. It was cool.
Yeah, and then Rock sits on the throne. Size ill-fitting, breaks the throne. He's a hero of conduct. And then there's a credit scene where Amanda Waller's like, all right, everyone gets one.
Sends a drone. Yeah.
Yeah. And but if you step outside conduct, we'll be mad. And he's like, oh, no one on earth can stop me. And she's like, I can make a phone call. And Henry Cavill shows up, and people in my theater cheered and screamed. And they have
it's no Shadow the Hedgehog.
They say words to each other. I couldn't really make it out, but it's basically like, we need to talk. We have a lot to talk about. It's the Morbius Vulture conversation, basically. I'm listening.
It's so lame.
And for the fans, it's a genuine surprise. They initially shot the scene without Cavill because at the time when they started production, they didn't have the rights to. Well, they had the rights, but they weren't sure if Cavill was coming back or not. So, I mean, in that regard, it's neat. As an actual like scene, it's pretty standard. Like nothing particularly interesting happens. It just lets you know that Henry Cavill is back as Superman.
Hey there, listener. Want to influence the podcast? Head on over to patreon.com/Cinematic Doctrine and support the show for $3 a month.
In doing so, you'll be able to vote on a movie poll that picks a film we discuss each month. So jump on over there and have your voice heard.
So there's some interesting stuff in there, but it's all just like disappears halfway through the movie to become a standard. We have to team up to fight a big bad guy. He's going to destroy the earth if we don't stop him. Like standard stakes, very, very underwhelming, boring villain. The Rock, I will say, like, he gives a performance here. I like his, like, there's something happening there. Like, he clearly loves his character. And it's always interesting when you get, like, actors who just love a character for whatever reason.
Yes.
Sometimes there's something about the character they connect with. Sometimes they see this as a character that they could really make something out of. And sometimes it's kind of both. It's always also when you see, like, action stars tend to gravitate towards introspective, cool guys who will do what's necessary, do what's right. They're willing to kill.
Is Riddick like that too?
Yes, I was going to say, like, it's very similar to the Riddick character. Or even John Bernthal really loves playing the Punisher. Every character Liam Neeson and Clint Eastwood played during particular parts of their careers, The Man with No Name. And so, like, this definitely is that character for The Rock. Like, he sees this as an avatar for, his kind of, his things he's interested in. And there is something interesting about that. Like, I do like when an A-list actor who could do whatever they want, they could be in any project, just gravitates towards a particular thing because it tickles their fancy, whether it lines up with their particular tastes or it's a character that they like to be in. There's something there. It's something, it elevates the project a bit because you can see that the people involved actually care about what they're making. And I do get that sense with The Rock playing Black Adam. And, but unfortunately they just don't do much with them. This is very much an introducing the character kind of movie. I would like to see this character actually presented with a real moral quandary of some kind, where here it seemed like the battle was very internal and he was somewhat conflicted, but it's more conflicted about just whether or not to be a hero. And he sort of makes that decision to be a hero for these people. Very Dr. Doom in Latvia kind of thing. But I would like to see the character have more to do in the future. But as it stands, this was a very standard action movie that just happens to have a superhero kind of sheen over it.
It's interesting. Like, I think also what's sort of disappointing for a lot of people is there's not much to talk about with Black Adam. I think people really, really, thanks to Marvel, expect to have a whole lot to chew on and kind of explore. But thanks also to Marvel, people are so inundated with superhero stuff that, like, sorry, Black Adam, but Marvel had like 6 projects before you showed up. Like, we're kind of tired. The energy's kind of spent, which is kind of how I'm feeling even in this episode, where it's like, and that's not just because this is the second episode we're recording today, but like, there's just something like about it that's just tiresome. I saw a video from Escapist, Darren Mooney. He actually felt this was worse than Morbius because he just felt like it's so recycled.
Whoa.
I know.
Whoa.
I know. His argument was just because it was so recycled, it was so characterless, it was like nonsensical. Like, there's a new bad guy with basically the same powers as Superman, and you're gonna send 2 children to go fight him. Like, when because the movie already sets up that there can be violence, and it can be like, and I don't mean like punching and kicking. I mean like people getting ripped apart or something, like the creative violence of like a slow motion grenade in mouth kind of thing, which wasn't graphic. It's just implication. It's fun. Like people getting obliterated when he shoots the lightning. That was cool, kind of fun. But like, so like when Atom Smasher crushes him with his fist, I was expecting like Black Adam to just fly through his arm and like come out his shoulder or something. But like crazy stuff like that, like the boys almost.
That would have been nuts if he had like actually killed Justice Society members.
But I thought of that. I was like, I could see this happening where like if that develops and why not, right?
Like that would have been an interesting thing because like the Justice Society, and I didn't mention this much, but like a subtle, again, like I don't know if subtle is the right word, but like interesting thing they do is that when they're introduced and in their early interactions, they're a more typical superhero team. They're telling jokes, they're laughing, they're making zingers about the like, oops, sorry about that. If they're like causing horrible damage, I'm like, hey, this is actually kind of effective satire. I would like it if that's intentional. Like I'd like it if they did more of that, or if it ends with like Black Adam just like murders them. Like 2 of them are teenage superheroes.
And in that way, like
know?
the whole like fighting against invaders, or even if you want to have obvious dialogue, Black Adam towards the end, they could yell at him like, "You killed us! You killed the kids! You killed," and he could just be like, "You sent them to me." Like he could just be like, it could just make it, just spell it out to the audience. Like,
you gave him the sentence. I was just the executioner. You know?
Yeah, like why did you bring children to fight me? And like, I don't know, that could be like interesting. And like, I'm not asking for like more kids to die on screen.
Notes from
like,
Melvin.
But like, which to me is not a problem if you're narratively handling it well. There's plenty of movies I could name that like kind of have that. That's fine. What's it called? Book of Henry comes to mind, but
could Black Adam beat Book of Henry? How much part time does Book of Henry have?
Could Saw beat Book of Henry? I don't know. It's just a stalemate for eternity. Like that is the Joker Batman immovable wall versus an unstoppable
He's
force.
facing Henry, but then Henry's mom with a sniper rifle takes him out.
It's just the doll. I actually wanted you to shoot the doll. I needed a tricycle to fall into the lake so that someone would find it. It's just like, so stupid.
Do you know Jigsaw, like Tobin's coming back for Saw 10?
Ah, good. I hope he's alive.
I hope they
or just like a twin.
Like the third time.
He's just got to be like a twin or something.
He should be like Mr. Bloodstone in Werewolf by Night. He's just like a half puppet thing that like they crank and he talks.
Yeah, like it's so funny. Like you just be the bad guy in one of these movies. It doesn't matter. You don't even need a costume. Just be interesting and people like you. Like Tobin Bell doesn't really do anything. Like he just
it's the voice. There. He's got the voice.
He does have the voice for it. You're right. And he's like perpetually like 80, even though he's probably been like 50 for like
I don't know. Did you see that picture
years?
of him with the backwards baseball cap? And
yeah, now he's younger. Yeah. But all that to say is like Black Adam has like interesting stuff, but at this point now we're kind of just like, I don't know. It's just
we've
like,
seen it all, right?
Right. And that's why I think Darren Mooney was like, at least Morbius got us some memes and like at least gives us something to do in spite of itself. But like Black Adam exists as like almost for him, he interpreted as like almost like an earnest parody where it's hoping that you like what it's doing, but you're just like, man, I'm so sick of this. Like I've had this meal so much. And now you finally got it right. But guess what? Like I've had 12 other people make this for me. I don't need it anymore.
Yeah, it's like a chain restaurant. It's like at Applebee's or Chili's.
Yeah,
it's
like
not
I don't
bad.
need another one.
You know, it's just, but you know.
Hey. We have some Patreon goals we're trying to reach. If we get enough support, we'll review each God's Not Dead movie, as well as The Inhumans, that really bad Marvel show from a couple years ago. Head over to patreon.com/cinematic doctrine and share your support.
I don't know. And like, I find myself agreeing with him. Not that it's worse than Morbius, but the other stuff aesthetically, Morbius is worse than this. Like in terms of quality, like Morbius blows my mind.
Please don't take that away from this episode of like, oh, you know, Morbius is actually
no, that was like, I mean, what was going on
that
there?
was
like,
miserable. Like Black Adam, like I know, like depending on where you, like if someone's just to pause and randomly skip through the episode and listen to random bits.
Black Adam does not have a scene where someone's arm gets ripped off. There's no blood, but there's the blood sound effect. Like that happens in Morbius, where it's like the psh, and it's like
this movie does
no
thing
blood.
with like it's discolored, you know, and so it's not like a red, so it doesn't look like, you know, people aren't covered in blood. But yeah, like depending on where you random bits from this episode, it sounds very positive, very negative, but this is a very mixed, like C minus C movie, you know, like it's very standard, it's very boilerplate,
it's a movie rental quality.
It's a if you could, it's a very definitely a rental if we were still going by those types of metrics, you know. It's like there's a couple elements here that definitely make it stand out, and namely some of the characters, like again Black Adam, Dr. Fate, Hawkman, like those characters. And this is also the first one of these DCU movies where it feels like a connected universe project, because you have Amanda Waller, you have Jennifer Holland.
Exactly. Yes.
You have the big cameo at the end. Like, so it does feel like the machine's awakening. It's starting to get up and running. There's some gears turning here, you know? So if for the faithful, this is a success because the franchise is alive. Things are moving forward, going in a positive direction. The Rock has become something of a minor hero among the DC fandom because he's the guy, like, regardless of how much credit you think he does or does not deserve, he's the guy that brought back Cavill. He's the guy that gave him a big hit movie in Black Adam, which, not like $1 billion hit, but it is making money. He's listed as officially an advisor to the DC universe. So, like, currently your team is alongside James Gunn. I love the idea they have a boardroom meeting and The Rock is there with James Gunn.
Yeah, because James is so
what if
tiny.
Black Adam killed the Joker too? Just like trying to make sure Black Adam gets all the cool one-liners and gets all the cool kills. So, like, yeah, in that regard, not a home run, but he got on base. And so I can see why for some people they really, really like this movie. But, like, I can also see why this movie's getting the same level of reviews as every Rock action movie. Look up Rampage, look up what's it called, Skyscraper, look at the reviews for, I don't know, like Jumanji 2. Like, this is getting pretty standard Rock numbers, and he's upfront about that. He makes crowd pleasing blockbusters. He's not Dave Bautista, who is specifically trying to work with every big name director he can find.
And really good, by the way. He's a good performer.
He
Dave
is.
Bautista.
And, like, the dude has been directed by Werner Herzog, Denis Villeneuve.
Yeah.
Like, he's in the new Knives Out movie. Like, Dave Bautista is very particular.
And now he's working with Shyamalan. Cool.
Yes, he's in an M. Night Shyamalan movie. He's, of course, working with James Gunn. John Cena is, like, the most surprisingly decent actor I've seen in a long time. He's really great in Peacemaker. So he's trying to be kind of like the middle. Like, he's not picking art projects, but he also does want to be a big star. The Rock wants to be a big movie star, and there's nothing wrong with that. He's good at it. He's charismatic. He's really likable. He elevates most projects he's in just by proxy of being The Rock in them. And so, yeah, like Black Adam, it's a Rock movie. It's like all his other ones. It's not going to be a critical darling. There's no conspiracy here. It's entertaining. It's likable. Like, I didn't dislike seeing the movie. I had a fun time in the theater. Man, oh man, watching The Rock just viciously like destroy dudes is pretty neat. But, it's unfortunately, it's one of those things where even though there's some interesting stuff here, when you look under the hood, there's not much going on. And it's kind of disappointing, and it stands out more to me just because those initial elements are present. They do have moments of pretty solid satire early on. There is some interesting stuff thematically here, but none of it's followed up on. And by the end, it just becomes another superhero movie where a evil force is going to destroy the world with the powers of hell in this case, and a superhero who maybe is a reluctant hero has to step up and fight the bad guy. And that is kind of disappointing now, because I think this is roughly the 150th time I've seen that in a superhero film.
Did you cheer though when the cool visual of a space laser happened in Black Adam?
Whatever.
Weren't you just so happy that happened again?
I cheered in Furious 7 when The Rock does a rock bottom on Jason Statham through a glass table. Like, I love that when wrestlers do their moves in movies, because most wrestling, like, signature moves are so impractical in, like, a real fight.
Yeah.
So that's what's cool about something like Shawn Michaels. His signature move was a kick to the head. Like, you could do that in a real fight. But Stone Cold's never going to hit a stunner on a guy in a fight, But
anything in conclusion for Black Adam? Anything that's like, I don't know, anything we've missed? I'm trying to think.
It gets a passing grade, but it's like a C-.
Yeah, it's kind of
It's but it's not terrible. It's not the worst movie I've seen. It's way better than Morbius. If you edited this movie down, I think that'd actually improve it. Just because if you had more bang for your buck, like, consistently, it could be a solid 90-minute action movie that's interesting. Like, there's a lot of novelty here. The fact that your hero in the movie is ripping guys' arms off and purposely killing them. And we didn't mention this really, but it's a running joke that the characters keep trying to convince him not to kill people.
Oh yeah, that's
just
great.
keeps doing it.
And finding new ways to get around it. Like, I knew I could drop them because I knew you'd pick them back up. So, like, whatever. Like, that's pretty funny.
It's actually funny too.
Yeah.
It gets a little old by the end, but it's pretty. It got a few genuine kind of chuckles out of me. So there is some novelty here that makes it a little better than, like,
if it was just tighter, then that novelty would be a lot more enjoyable.
You get way more mileage out of it.
Yeah, your jokes wouldn't be like one every 12, 14 minutes. It would be like one every 6 or 7. Like, the jokes become the kills in a horror movie where it's like one every 8. So, like, it's I wouldn't mind if, like, HBO Max turned into the DC R-rated platform where, like, every R-rated cut of these movies comes out on there. So like you got Batman vs Superman, Justice League. I mean, Suicide Squad is just R-rated, but like, like if like a Black Adam R-rated cut version comes out, that'd be interesting. Because if you're saying that they had to cut it down to be that, and maybe do some edits, that means it's out there, like it exists. It's not like they were making it and then pivoted. It could be interesting to see maybe like what would that be? Would there be more jokes? Would it be more like exciting? Like, because some of the jokes again are the violence, like the way he just obliterates people or things. It's like that's funny.
It'd be a fun movie.
What
if the second one is just Amanda Waller sends the Suicide Squad to try and assassinate Black Adam?
Yeah, instead of doing bad Superman, because that's like just tired. Like you could just have a villain who is bad Superman. Like that'd be more interesting.
Well, it's like because you also could get like there's genuine tension because man, he could kill all of them for all we know because these are like D-list heroes. Who cares?
Yeah,
and you could get some fun stuff depending on what their particular power sets are. He could find creative ways to kill the characters. What's that? Like there's those characters that use yo-yos, and so you could like wrap a yo-yo around someone and like fling them in the sun or something,
or like grab them by their intestines and throw them down and then pull them back up in the intestine.
You're right. This is fun.
And then as they're coming back up, he punches through their face. Yeah. Just like silly stuff like that.
Yeah, it could be like R-rated Looney Tunes.
Yeah, you have it all there where like you can do fun stuff.
And like it turns out, again, because Amanda Waller, it turns out she has some other motive there. And then a handful of the Suicide Squad characters, like whatever, Harley Quinn or whatever. And I think they could, like, Black Adam is also a great straight man for comedy. So you could do a thing where like Harley's annoying, but he finds her endearing, and then they actually like stop whatever Amanda Waller's actual plan is. I would like that if that became her thing, where she's the one Suicide Squad member who keeps surviving all these movies for no reason.
Yeah, she's about to like get punched, and she's like, "Wait, I have something to tell you." It's like, what?
Hold on.
It's
she puts like lipstick on and goes, "Okay, I'm ready."
Yeah, something stupid.
Yeah,
and that gives her enough time to get out or something. So yeah,
James Gunn, give me a call. Yeah. I got some ideas.
If that yo-yo intestine kill happens,
I swear, Mr. Gunn,
I'm gonna freak out. I'm gonna lose it. All right. Well, good movie. It was pretty enjoyable. It's not bad. It's not good. It's like it's
like Black Adam when you think about it, right?
Yeah. It's sort of it's not a killjoy all the time, but it's not quite killer. It's not quite killjoy. I don't know. I've seen worse movies this year.
Me too.
I'm not about to pull Halloween Ends from like, maybe if I just rewatch the entire DC universe and then check this one out again.
I can start with the 1940s Batman serials and move forward.
Yeah, then I'll take some notes and then I'll rewatch it again in the same day just because I missed it. So yeah, I'm not going to do
watch it in 3D, watch it in Dolby, watch it in standard.
Watch it with teens talking the whole time. Watch it without teens talking the whole time. It's fine. Rent it. Definitely rent it. You don't have to go out and see it. If you got A-list, go see it because then you get to see it on the big screen. It's definitely fun in there.
I mean, I feel like it's kind of standard for most movies, but if you can see this for free,
A-list. At that point, it is free with A-list, but yeah, so. Hey, don't forget, there's a lot of fun content missing from this episode because you're not listening on Patreon. Head over to patreon.com/cinematic doctrine and support for $3 a month to gain access to uncut episodes with upwards of 40 minutes of bonus content each. You'll thank me later. I guess recommendations. I didn't really prep for one because I was expecting to do this on Monday, recording on Monday, but here we are on Saturday. So what do you got? What do you have? So I have more time to decide.
I will just say Henry Selick's new film, stop motion film, Wendell and Wild, is up on Netflix. He, of course, is director on Coraline, Nightmare Before Christmas, and all that stuff. He's the guy who actually makes Nightmare Before Christmas the movie that it is. It also is produced by Jordan Peele and features Keegan-Michael Key and Jordan Peele as the lead voices. It's a beautiful stop motion. It's a cool little movie, and it's free. It's on Netflix, so if you have Netflix, you don't pay a dime to see it outside of your subscription. So the return of Henry Selick working with Jordan Peele. What else do you need? It's on Netflix.
A couple months ago, Sundance happened, January. And then after that, a couple movies wound up getting kind of like released into the public space and to some theaters. And I caught Emily the Criminal in theaters before it phased out. There were a couple others I was going to catch, like Breaking, with John Boyega. I did get tickets for that, but I missed it. But Emily the Criminal was pretty good. It's kind of been a mid movie. The premise is that Emily is a criminal. Really, it's that they're trying to figure out who they want to be. They're kind of just like, I wrote in my review, like what I enjoyed about this movie is that Emily as a character is just really bad at like everything. And it's in like a way that's not like comical. The movie almost is kind of documentarian. Like it's just sort of watching a character's life as they get involved in like credit card scams and frauds, but not in like the phone. More like they will go into stores and buy things with cards that were stolen and then move on to do new cards and stuff like that. But they're just so bad at it that like it's kind of interesting, but also they're interacting with people that are very normal in that they're all very bad at like dealing with it. Cause it's like, you don't prepare to have your credit card stolen. And like, I think for some people, that's why the movie's kind of mid, because it's so plain. But like for me, I actually quite liked it. And the more I've thought about it, the more I've enjoyed it. Like thinking about it, the film is shot so claustrophobically close to people's faces. Like you thought the Safdie brothers movies were close. This is like, it is almost like I described it in my Letterboxd review. Like the cameraman was told to stand really far back, but then zoom the camera in really close because the way the camera kind of moves is so like natural hand movements as opposed to like, cause like when you do that, the camera kind of moves a lot because it's picking up how your hands are just kind of shaking naturally and stuff. And so to me, like that just kind of makes it a really focused, simultaneous, distant portrait of a character as they kind of just suck at life. And like in that way, like it's really like sympathetic to the character and it just becomes like a really interesting character study of someone who's just bad at it. If you like Shades, that guy, I forget his name, but he is in it.
Theo Rossi.
Yes. He's actually in a couple movies this year. This one and in another one called Enter the... It's like In the Maze or something. It's on Peacock.
On Peacock. Yeah. The premise is so intriguing. I looked it up. Apparently, everyone doesn't like it.
I started it, and once I saw he was in it, I was like, "Oh, I'm not watching this on my phone. I'll watch this at home." But I feel like, I think I heard it's kind of mid. But
I watched Shades on the big screen only.
Yeah, he's just a good performer. I think he's really good, and he's good in Emily the Criminal. But it's a very humanizing story about people doing bad things that I really quite enjoyed. And like I said, like if you can suffer through the fact that you'll be like, what are you doing, Emily? You suck. Like, step back. Like, you would suck at this too. Like, you would feel awkward because you knew it's wrong, but you don't know what else to do, and so you do it anyways. It's good. I definitely recommend it. And the lead character is Aubrey Plaza. So, like, if you like Aubrey Plaza being more of a person, like as opposed to some of the other movies where she's more like heightened or comedic, like this is, I think, a good one to check out. I'll have a Just Watch link in the recommendations so you know where to rent it for cheap. And Emily the Criminal, I frankly wouldn't mind talking about it on the podcast to some degree, but it's also maybe not worth a full episode. I'm not sure, but it's one that stuck with me this year, and I think it's pretty good. So, and it's not a horror movie because it's not October anymore. Maybe I'll recommend horror again later. But anyways, Dan, do you have anything else, or are
Nope.
we? Nope. Okay, so we're done. No commentary for you. Thanks for listening to this episode. Bye.
Thanks so much for checking out this episode of Cinematic Doctrine. If you enjoyed this episode, consider leaving a review and subscribing to the podcast. And as mentioned before, Cinematic Doctrine has a Patreon. For as little as $3 a month, you're opted into a once-a-month movie poll where you decide a movie we discuss on the podcast. There are other unique benefits that come with supporting the podcast, so be sure to check that out at patreon.com/cinematic doctrine. A special shout out to those who support at the Art House Theater tier on Patreon. Thank you so much, Mom, Dad, Melanie, Shirleyan, and Thomas. You guys are the best, and your continued monetary support is greatly appreciated. Until next time, stay cool. Want some Cinematic Doctrine swag? You're in luck. We've got 3-inch Cinematic Doctrine logo stickers exclusive for Patreon supporters. Perfect for your travel mug or laptop. Head over to patreon.com/cinematic doctrine, link in the show notes, and choose the independent theater tier. Doing so will net you other perks too. But let's be real, the podcast stickers are the coolest perk. So get yourself some podcast stickers by supporting on Patreon.